Washington. After an around-the-clock negotiating effort, President Joe Biden said early Thursday morning that railway companies and laborers had reached a tentative agreement that will improve worker pay and keep trains running. Biden said in a statement that rail workers who stayed on the job through the pandemic will get better pay, improved working conditions, and peace of mind around their health care costs, all hard-earned, and rail companies will be able to retain and recruit more workers for an industry that will continue to be part of the backbone of the American economy for decades to come. For the American people, the hard work done to reach this tentative agreement means that our economy can avert the significant damage any shutdown would have brought, Biden said in the statement. Amtrak had canceled long-distance trains ahead of potential strike. Amtrak and commuter railroads warn of service cuts ahead of impending strike. Labor Secretary Marty Walshek, "Our rail system is integral to our supply chain, and a disruption would have had catastrophic impacts on industries, travelers and families across the country," Walsh said in a tweet. Amtrak and commuter railroads had been bracing for service cuts, disruptions and cancellations amid the dispute that pitted Biden's allegiances to railway companies and unions against one another. He was touting his administration's investment in railroads and other infrastructure projects in Detroit on Wednesday, while Walsh mediated talks between the 12 railway unions and carrier executives in Washington. A strike from freight railroad workers could have further strained supply chains and deliver a damaging blow to Democrats before the midterm elections. Ian Jeffries, president and CEO of the Association of American Railroads, said a work stoppage would result in an unnecessary $2 billion daily economic hit, just as the freight sector moves into peak shipping season. The railroad companies that he represents have accused the uncommitted unions of taking positions expressly rejected by the Presidential Emergency Board. Biden was personally in touch with railroad companies and union representatives this week to try to avoid a shutdown. The White House was exploring contingencies including invoking emergency authorities to ensure crucial materials are still delivered if one occurred, according to a White House official, who discussed the talks on the condition of anonymity. Amtrak hustles to restore service. Amtrak was working to undo the cancellations it had announced for Thursday. Amtrak is working to quickly restore canceled trains and reaching out to impacted customers to accommodate on first available departures, the system announced shortly after Biden relayed news of the tentative agreement. Pelosi, Congress was ready to act. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said in a Thursday morning statement that Congress was also considering any actions it could take. Congress, under the Commerce Clause of the Constitution, has the authority and responsibility to ensure the uninterrupted operation of essential transportation services and has in the past enacted legislation for such purposes, Pelosi said. Led by the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, the House prepared and had reviewed legislation, so that we would be ready to act, pursuant to Section 10 of the Railway Labor Act. Biden's loyalty. Biden was stuck in a hard spot politically as an outspoken supporter of unions while also desperately wanting to avoid the repercussions of a shutdown. More than any other modern president, Biden regularly hails organized labor. He said last year saying his goal is to be the most pro-union president leading the most pro-union administration in American history. A strike and bottlenecked supply chains could have undermined Democrats' credibility on the economy, giving Republicans new ammunition as they look to regain control of Congress in the November elections. Such a setback could have halted Biden's recent momentum. The president is experiencing a bounce in approval ratings after a series of legislative wins in Congress and declining gas prices. And Democrats have been energized by the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, reversing their once gloomy prospects to maintain control of Congress. This article originally appeared on USA Today. Railroad strike averted as Biden says tentative deal reached. Updates.